So 1, 2, 3, here we are. That's the formal start. Rose Gracie,
Hey!
Mr. Garry Tonon, how are you, brother?
What's going on, guys? Great to have you. Great to be here with both of you.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I know it's late too. So I didn't know you were leaving Puerto Rico already, man.
I am. Yep, moved not too long ago. Yeah.
Look at Rose's face. She doesn't know either.
Sorry?
Puerto Rico, that's amazing. How did you get that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it happened fast, like for everybody. I mean, we really only started talking about it like maybe 3 months ago. So, I mean, I didn't even think it was going to happen, but it happened. So here we are.
No shit, right? That was
Did
crazy.
Your whole family moved there or what?
Not my family, but well, my Jiu Jitsu family anyway. The whole team moved here, you know. So Gordon's out here, Nikki, a bunch of the juniors, Taza, Ethan, everybody moved out. So Damien, one of my students, got a whole crew out here. I have to say it's kind of nice on multiple levels because we all like trained together, right? But like we were never living like right next to each other, so we didn't really get to spend the time together that we get to spend together now, which is kind of great. And then on top of that, like when you move to a new place like this, especially somewhere where they speak it mostly predominantly a different language than you, to not have like, I can't imagine doing this without having a group of people that I knew. Like if I had done this and it was just me out here, man, I have no idea how I would have done it. So it's cool that like, we have a bunch of other people to help each other out. So it's cool.
So does everybody there, like when you go to a store or something, the most people even speak English there? Because I know, or no, not really.
Older generation mostly speak Spanish, and then younger generation, I would say anybody 30 and younger, probably it's almost a guarantee that they speak some level of English. And then upwards of that, it's pretty much a guarantee that they don't. I speak a little bit of Spanish myself, not a lot, enough to like order food and things, like very simple things. So I can kind of get by, but I'm actually happy about it. Like it's kind of a cool thing to be able to learn another language. I always kind of felt like a little embarrassed myself because I travel internationally and I talk to a lot of different people, and most of the people that I interact with internationally know several languages. And it's like, it kind of makes you feel, I don't know if I would say less intelligent or anything like that, but just, I feel bad being of the language that everybody is just expected to speak and not having, has spent the time to learn myself. So I'm glad that now I'm in a position where I kind of have to, on some level.
That's good.
That's gonna help a lot with the Portuguese too, because you're getting a lot of Spanish.
We'll get
right?
there.
It's gonna be a quick shortcut. Even John Danaher moved there, so it's how was the process of picking Puerto Rico and I follow you guys. I'm in New York. I know all the shit you've been through with the COVID.
Sure.
I follow Gordon too. I saw the rants online and everything. So I kind of have an idea why you guys say screw this and let's go
I don't, and I'm assuming all the listeners don't too. So
give us
the insight.
All right. No problem. So, I mean, I can elaborate to the best of my ability. Like I said, it all happened very fast anyway. We had been talking for years about going and doing our own thing for many reasons. One of which just to have autonomy and training environment. Like we're in training at Renzo's. While I love Renzo's and everything like that, it's not our school. I mean, it's our home in a sense that that's where a lot of us came from. We trained there. Obviously, John's teacher and everything like that, but to do the training schedule that we would like and all these sorts of things, we kind of had to fit into the grid lines of whatever was going on at Renzo's. So, to be able to have autonomy and do kind of like whatever it was that we wanted would have been a nice thing to do. Just as well, I think a lot of us were commuting to New York, and many of us didn't live directly in the city. I suppose we could have moved, but it's very expensive. So that
you were an hour away from the city, right?
Yeah. So money wise and time, especially for junior students who I could afford to live in the city, but there's a lot of other people on the team that were driving in from Jersey that would not have been able to do that. So that was a tough thing. Money wise, that was a thought as far as moving is concerned and all these things. And also just like, I think in terms of like business enterprise, it's like, hey, like, we have a group of people who's pretty well known now in the grappling community. Starting a school together is not the worst business decision. It's probably going to make a lot of money and we'll be able to be a very successful place. So I think that was another reason why, potentially a move would have happened. Now, flash forward, because those conversations were happening like 5 years ago. Flash forward to now, basically because of all of that was happening, I never really believed we were ever going to move because we talked about it for so long and nobody ever pulled the trigger on anything. Like we would talk about it and then it just kind of like a couple things would get done and we just kind of die off. And I'm like, we're just going to end up here forever. Whatever, no big deal. Maybe when I'm 45 or something and, everything's done, I'll move somewhere if I want to,
When he's old and retired, like.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Maybe. That was my thought, that's what I was thinking. I don't know, like whatever. To me, it's like wherever the team is, that's where I'm going to be. So if it was New York, it's New York, whatever. It is what it is. So then like what you were saying with COVID and everything, things started to get even tighter. I even said to like John early on, half joking, but like I was kind of like, dude, like things are getting pretty rough. Like 2 months into this, I lost my gym, because and I had just opened a brand new facility, put everything in, this, that, and the other thing. Lost
you
a
put
ton
like
of money,
$50,000, $60,000
and I'm not alone
right?
in that. That happened to tons.
I know.
It's not like it was just me, but I'm just saying, like, that happened to me, and like, then I'm thinking, my students are wondering what's going to happen next and where we're going to open and stuff. And like, I honestly was thinking to myself, I'm like, I can't really open right now because if I do at any given point in time, even if I feel comfortable, I'm in a spot where I can kind of do things like illegally under the table, whatever, the rug could get taken out from under me at any minute. And now I'm on the hook for rent every month. Right. So eventually I found a way to do it where I'm paying somebody and he's basically said, if anything happens COVID related, I no longer have to pay. Right. So if somehow the government comes in, shuts the whole thing down, we're done, no problem. He doesn't expect any money from me, which is great. But like without finding something like that, I was struggling to figure out how the hell I was ever going to open up another school. And I was kind of talking to John, like, that's not my main subsistence in terms of money, but I was kind of like thinking like, hey, if that's the way things are going, and things were worse in New York, if that's the way things are going, like, man, I don't know if we're going to be able to continue doing this thing. I didn't even know if we were going to be able to continue training. Now, thankfully, Henzo's, a wonderful guy and like found a way to allow us to continue training. And we found a way to like make sessions happen, even though like there was heavy restrictions and things like that. And I'm very thankful for that because that would have been a shit show if we would have had to not been able to train in New York where we normally train. But it was still, the rules were very strict and a lot of times we had to get off the mat very quickly. There's a lot of things going on, man. And I feel for him. Henzo's is still open, but many, many other academies in New York City are closed now, I believe. So I think he might be one of the last ones open there, to be honest. And, I hope things continue to move in a positive direction, but like, as of right now, it's like hard to see an end to all of this, especially in New York City, maybe in some other places, but it's just like one of the hardest hit places. And it's tough, man. So I think that played a pretty big role in accelerating us moving. And then as far as Puerto Rico is concerned, a bunch of the guys went out there to spend some time with Mo Jasm, he trains Jiu Jitsu and he is part of the ADCC Federation, does some of the work with those guys. So Gordon's been on and off going back and forth to hang out with him and stuff in LA all the time. And I've spent some time with him and this, that, and the other thing. So he invited them over to train where he lives in Puerto Rico. And I guess, because of their relationship, he was kind of telling them like, hey, it's like a pretty good place. We can do kind of what we need to do, with training. Like, yeah, obviously there's still COVID stuff going on, but, I think you guys could, open up a great school here and like things could go well. So I guess that connection, because he knew some people here and like we felt like he was going to facilitate some of what we needed to do, that it made sense move wise. So kind of like what I was talking about before, like having somebody to help you do everything made it a little bit easier to move there, than it would have been if we would have just said, maybe for instance, move to Texas or Florida or something. And then we would just kind of been on our own. We just had to figure it out by ourselves. So I think that's mostly what happened. Honestly, I wasn't like a huge part of I was part of the discussion. Like obviously John brought me in and talked to me about it and everything, but I never really was trying to argue one way or the other. Like I told you before, like I'm just going to be with the team wherever the team's going to go.
Sure.
And if the team's going to move, yeah. But but if the team's not going to move, whatever, I'm staying with the team. So if they want to go to Florida, I'm going to Florida. They want to go to Ethiopia, I'm there. Like whatever it is. So
this is some really exciting times for you. My dad always says to me that, you know, things in life, they don't happen to you, they happen for you. And sometimes when we look at situations, we think it's the worst thing that could possibly happen to us. And when we look back, it's like, man, that was the best thing that could have happened to me because he actually led me to this situation. So it's actually exciting knowing that all that happened in New York, that you guys now have the opportunity to like start again and grow in there. And I think I have no questions that you guys will do phenomenally. But I'm excited to talk about everything that's going on with your MMA career and everything. With one, we had a discussion, me and Hafa here, because I said, Hafa, you saw Garry at the gym? And then he's like, yeah, several times. I'm like, did you ever invite him to the show? No. I go, then don't go in here like you know Garry, okay? If you've never invited him to the show before, don't come in here talking like you're the king, okay?
Yeah, that was my bad.
But so how is your experience with one has been so far? Okay, so let me just start off saying, I'm going to put a disclaimer here because everybody that listens to the show knows that I'm very much against jiu-jitsu guys fighting MMA. And the reason is because I always feel that jiu-jitsu guys, like they have jiu-jitsu and they hold on to that, like they're specialists in jiu-jitsu and they never grow in jiu-jitsu. Like they never grow into MMA. They never learn. They try to get a little bit like cliff notes of everything else. And they try to go in like, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. And then I got these little cliff notes on everything else. And then they go in there and they show their jiu-jitsu guy. And then I'm just like, why? So I always say in the show here, every time we do the show, that I'm like, why is Rodolfo Vieira fighting? Why is so-and-so fighting? They don't need to be fighting. Leave them with jiu-jitsu, right? I've been really well spoken.
Yep.
But now I'm going to have to go back on my word a little bit because first of all, like Garry has gotten to be, I think in division and you know, I've been watching you for a long time, you know, that the most unconventional and creative, tough opponent that anybody can have. He does things so differently, and he just seems like Garry is constantly growing. So leading up to, you know, the talk with one that you're going to come on the show, and I'm like, okay, let me watch some of his MMA fights. And I said, you know, let me watch the last 3 fights. So I watched a little bit of the fights. I'm like, okay. And I just saw the improvement until your last fight with, wait, where's the guy's name? Matsu, what's his last guy? Matsushima, yes. And that was like, there was rounds that you were literally exchanging with him. And I'm like, what the hell? Now I'm going to have to go back on my word and put a disclaimer on the show that, wait a minute, this is, so to me, it's something crazy because as I watch your matches, and there was a huge difference in time that I noticed. It was like almost like a year and 7 months between a year and a half between the previous match to the last one. And the difference was just, I mean, you would think that you would be rusty, you know, and maybe that's why there was enough finish, but there was nothing there, Garry. Like everything that I saw was just improvement after improvement after improvement. And I'm like, dude, this guy is literally exchanging right now. What is going on right now? And I was super proud of you because, you know, like, you know, you did my tournament in the past, the Gracie tournaments over in LA, the Gracie Worlds or Nationals. I don't remember which one it was, but, you know, you did my tournament. So I always feel like these are my kids, you know, and I always like the EBI and I'm like, these are my babies, you know, the submission only guys are like my children all around. And I was so proud of you. I was so proud and I was so happy to see all the stuff that you did. And I was like blown away. So guys, not every jiu-jitsu guy is in the same situation that I've ragged in the past 4 years here. This is 1 in a million that come around. So that was it. That was my disclaimer.
It's pretty cool. And just a reminder for the guys who are watching, we're talking to the now number 3 featherweight on one championship. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So happy for you. So cool, man. So cool.
Thanks. So to Rose, to the effect of like, you know, doing your tournaments, stuff like that, like just a quick thank you for all of that. Like having that type of springboard, your events as well as others really propelled the sport forward, as well as myself to be able to get where I am today. So thank you for that. I honestly share a similar opinion to you about jiu-jitsu and MMA. The thing is I think the trouble a lot of the jiu-jitsu to MMA athletes run into it's very similar to what you described. They have done all of this work to become very, very good at a particular sport, right? And like, you know, you talk about somebody like Adolfo Vieira, like obviously we're talking like, you know, top of the run here. So I think it's hard. I'm not specifically talking about Adolfo now. I just used him as an example.
Sure.
Yeah, same.
I want to state that before he thinks I'm talking shit about it.
yeah,
No.
like,
But
this is a very
example.
clean cut podcast.
Yeah.
We got no
So-
nonsense here. So
So just saying, like guys that are like highest level of jiu-jitsu and they're transferring over into MMA, right? They've done so much work, you know, in their chosen field. I think sometimes when they do that transfer over to MMA, they get a little bit lazy. Like that's the way that I look at it. And I don't mean that in like necessarily like a confrontational way. I mean it in like it's like what Rose said. It's like, hey, I have these skills already. I've been fighting my whole life like this. Why should I adapt or change anything? It's like, oh, well, we're just going to add punches in. No big deal. But it's kind of a big deal. Like, like it's dangerous, man. It's really dangerous. All you got to do is watch some highlight KO finishes with like some kicks and elbows and stuff. Sorry, I gotta turn the stove off for a second. But you gotta watch some of those highlights of like people getting KO'd with like elbows and knees and all these different things that are just dangerous weapons that people have, and the people just drop in an instant. And like, it's a very different thing than like submission grappling, man. Like you can mess up pretty bad in a jiu-jitsu match and come back from it.
Or sometimes they even go the other way. I see a lot of guys, a ton of guys that like, they do like 6 months of boxing and he's like, you know what? My boxing is sharp, dude. I was like, dude, it's not. He's like, no. I'm killing it. I was like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Just please.
I think a lot of people get false confidence from the type of training that they do too. Like, so like a lot of people's main training methods are like pad work. And like, I get it. Like pad work is like, it's cardiovascularly challenging
but it's like a dance, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah. It feels good to hit something hard, right? And you're like, man, I'm really hitting the pads hard today or the bag hard today or whatever. And like, cool, man. But there's going to be somebody like moving in front of you and you're going to have to execute those combinations. And it's just so different.
It's going to be punching you back.
So if people don't really take the time to like integrate the skills of jiu-jitsu into mixed martial arts, I really don't want to see them fight either, because I personally think, and I'm not saying this again in a confrontational way, I don't think it brings benefit to the person, and I don't think it brings benefit to our martial art, because then it's like, that's a perfect excuse for somebody to be like, to point the finger at that guy and be like, well, look at that jiu-jitsu guy. You know, he sucked, like just got knocked out every fight or whatever the case may be, because he didn't really quite take the time to do the sparring or integrate the skills or, you know, really look at the whole picture. And I'm trying to do that to the best of my ability. I'm not pretending like I'm, you know, all the way there yet. And I won't until you're not going to hear me talk maybe the way that I would talk in jiu-jitsu for a while, maybe after I win the belt or something. Okay. Then like maybe I'll feel like I have a platform to stand on to really talk about, you know, what you should and shouldn't be doing in MMA. But I think I've done a pretty good job so far. So I appreciate you recognizing that. And that's my main focus, is like, hey, like, there's all this other stuff that I really don't understand, and I'm going to try to integrate my skills as best as I can in that and get comfortable doing it all. And I'm just doing my best every day. We'll see how long it lasts. We're going to ride this train till the wheels fall off. So,
and it's pretty cool. You have like a true master there in John Danaher who analyzes strikings now. Like I remember like Neyman Gracie, one of our friends here. You look at him and his evolution on
he's done wonderfully
fighting. It's amazing how he incorporated striking and wrestling and his ground game, which is top level. And he was telling me how good John Danaher is on that aspect of studying and coaching and showing. So there's no way to really fail there. It's amazing the work they do.
It's almost like the jiu-jitsu guys, they hit the top level and then they just added little things on, like little little confetti on top of the cake.
Sure.
Gary has shown, if you follow Gary's career, anybody that has followed Gary's career, and now he's going to know that I'm like watching, right? So Gary was known for choking people out, right? In the beginning of his career, that was like the guy. And then I even remember saying myself, guys, dude, this guy, trust me, it's a one-trick pony. All he's got is a rear naked choke and nothing else, okay? Then the guy shows up with all sorts of leg lock shit. And I was like, damn, okay, you got to watch everything with this guy. You don't know what he's going to do. Then he goes into MMA. And honestly, Gary, I really went to watch your matches already thinking, let's see. And although I was surprised, I wasn't like, I was happy and proud. It almost like it wasn't surprising to me because I've seen the evolution over the things that you do. And then you constantly growing, constantly getting. How old are you now?
I'm 29 now.
Oh my God. And if you're at 29 and you're literally going into this pathway, and it's almost like you found the correct pathway to go and you understand the game, you understand how things goes. You've competed with guys from all different sizes, the levels and stuff. And I'm really excited. This featherweight division that you have in right now, you have Thon Lee, how do you say his name? Thon Lee, as a champion right now. You have Martin Nguyen. Do you think there's possibly a rematch between the both of them, I'm going to assume, right? And then you have Christian Lee over there too. I mean, it's a stacked up. I mean, they have really good, talented people. Yeah. So it's really exciting to see. I don't know who you're going to get next, but whoever you get, this is an exciting thing to watch because you have really like proven yourself that you can do this. And it's something like most jiu-jitsu guys, I don't want to watch it. And Gary, I'm like, yeah, let me see it. What's going to happen? And it's exciting. It's really exciting. It's really exciting. Really exciting. Really exciting.
Look, I wanted to do, is it too early for us to try to do a breakdown? Because we were just talking about that. I think is a good hook for it. We got permission from One Championship to put one of your fights here so you can comment on it.
Tell us what you're thinking.
So which fight would you choose?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah.
To do a breakdown of
it's just one round. It's just one piece, one round. Whatever.
We can either do a very good round of the Matsushima fight, or we can show the whole Nakahara fight, or the.
Was that like 53 seconds?
Yeah, 55.
There's one that's like
it's a super quick breakdown. We can do the Anthony fight.
Sure. Let him pick, Hafa. What the hell?
You knock him out on the first round, right?
I think the Anthony fight's interesting to comment over because it's a very different fight. It's I use a lot of grapple box in that fight, and I don't do it as much in some of the other fights. So probably
exciting. I'm thinking about getting out of LA too. So I hear you loud and clear. I'm done.
That's rough over there too.
I'm going to Brazil next week. My family owns a property in Brazil that it's like 50 waterfalls inside of the property. The place is crazy. So I'm thinking about opening a CTE clinic there. So I'm going to go check the location out, see what happens. So hopefully I'll be able to hit the road, Jack. Nice. I'm done. I'm becoming so I'm vegan and I want to plant my own food and just do that type of stuff, get out of the grid. So get off the grid. Yeah, that's pretty much.
That's cool. Nothing wrong with that.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited. This is going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Hold on. I'm looking for it.
No problem.
Did Ryan move there to did Gordon move over there too with Sonny?
Yeah, yep. Nat's here, Gordon's here. They live with Ethan and Nikki.
Oh, that's so cool. Mm-hmm. They're all there. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That's freaking amazing. Whatever happened to Eddie Cummins?
It's a long story,
but I mean, is he still training?
Yeah. So as far as what's happening now, I can't say for sure. Last I heard, he at some point he was training at Unity. I don't really know.
He still trains though, right? Or not competing anymore, nothing like that. You don't know?
It's hard to say. It's gone so dark. I mean, we don't talk to each other. We haven't talked to each other for years.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I don't have any inside information that nobody else would have really.
Okay. No, I need to follow people on Instagram a little bit, I guess, so I can get up with what's happening in the world.
Nah, it's all good.
Jesus. Thank you, Hafa. Jeez.
Yeah, no shit, right?
Yeah.
The ads through.
Have you competed in Brazil yet?
Me?
Yeah.
I almost did once and it didn't play out. But actually, wait, sorry. ADCC Brazil. Yes, we did Sao Paulo. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I almost said no, but yeah, no, I have.
All right. Can you watch on my screen over there?
Well, we can. If you can see it well, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to see. You might have to zoom in or something for me.
Can you put it down here on the screen?
No.
Aha. But what type of shit is this?
Yeah. Hold on.
You could do a share screen, no?
I don't think so because I'm using a different machine for that.
Okay, no problem.
Ooh, this is like.
I mean, I'll watch to the best of my ability. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah,
I can see. I can see okay. I can't see amazing, but I can see okay.
Let's do it.
If I just started.
Yeah. All right. So I was very scared initially of him because he had in the last fight that I fought, he had a head kick KO in like 6 seconds. So I was really being careful here, and he threw a low kick that I catch. It was kind of a lazy low kick, and it just stuck and stayed there. And I was like, all right, well, I guess if he's going to give it to me, I'm going to try to take him down, right? So I think that was kind of the beginning of the end for him. Now he's just kind of hanging on my neck here a little bit. I'm trying to kind of get past. He's doing the best that he can to kind of like not let anything happen. It's the beginning of the fight, so everybody has all their strength and energy. He's giving me like some little annoying little short elbows here that aren't really doing much damage. A couple throw-by punches, but I'm not going to let him up. So one of the things you'll notice about what just happened there is immediately I put my head over his head to make sure that him getting up was not a possibility. Now, from the mount, what you're seeing me do is walk him towards the fence, and the reason I like to do this, I always find it incredibly uncomfortable being mounted while my head's propped up against the fence. A lot of people use the fence to try to get up, but when you're mounted on somebody, there's something about it, like you feel like you can't move. It's like another wall behind you. So I like to put people in that position a lot. Now here, I've stepped over his hips, and I'm kind of getting in one of our favorite grapple box positions here where I kind of just ride his hips and start throwing punches either under or over the gloves. And the idea is to punch in places where he's not protecting himself to the best of my ability. So I'm doing an okay job. He's kind of holding on to my gloves here and there, you know, not illegally. I just mean like, you know, kind of pinching his armpit over.
Just protecting himself, right?
Yeah, it's a little hard to get all these strikes off. He turns himself a little bit. Mostly I work out of kind of like tight waists here. I throw a couple knees. I don't know how flush those landed. I think like one or two do. And now I'm consistently keeping my head over his head again for a different reason. And this is to keep weight over his upper body so he can't stand up. All right, so I'm keeping weight over his upper body, and now I'm dragging legs. And I'm thinking about taking the back there a little bit, but I was like, nah, let's just maintain this idea of throwing strikes, controlling him. It's a very Khabib-esque sort of kind of grapple box situation that we're trying to work on here. So same thing, dragging him away from the fence, keeping my head over his head, and constantly looking for that over-under punching where I'm punching around the obstacles and not into them. Okay, and now I caught a couple elbows here around the ear, which is good. Those probably did some decent amount of damage. Similar thing, still staying head over head. Now I let up on it a little bit, so now he's able to get tall. And now I'm dragging him away from the fence with Kosoto. Oh, that was Oichi.
Yeah, that was
okay,
beautiful.
and now he's down in the guard with it back against the fence. So again, you know, because he's close to the fence, in some ways it's easier to get up, but in other ways, it's if I get my head above his head, like it makes it tough, you know. So my hips are above his hips again. All right, now I'm able to throw powerful strikes by creating some distance between us, which is good. All right, now right here, things started to get pretty dangerous for him. I started to hear him make audible noises while I was punching him and elbowing him. Like
Everybody
grunts,
says that
like grunts and moans and stuff, man. Like, ugh, ugh. And like I was like, oh man, like this is not good, like for him, you know. And I think the same thing's gonna happen again. Those elbows are tough to eat in that position. I think that's why the noises started to happen. So it's pretty much just been one-sided this fight, like the entire fight. Again, just looking to kind of get a position where I can get my head above his head again to throw some strikes. Because otherwise, if you're just attached to him, it's just pitter-patter. You know, so if I can get my head up, now I can throw some serious elbows, some serious punches. again, looking to go around the guard to the best of my ability. He's doing a good job protecting his head, but he's just eating strike after strike after strike and not really giving any offense. So I think this is playing in. Eventually, the referee is going to stop this.
Yeah.
You can only tolerate somebody just getting hit, nothing happening in return for so long. So now I'm punching on both sides, and the referee's just like, yeah, I've had enough. I don't want to see any more of that. So, so that's pretty much.
Yeah. Did you think about going for a submission? Or you're just like, oh, the strikes are working. I'm just gonna keep going. Huh?
There was 1 or 2 times in that fight where I thought about taking this back, and you saw it. Like I almost jumped to put a hook in, and I just kind of I was like, things are going so well with what I'm doing right now. Why bother? Like why even attempt it? Like I'm controlling him. There's no danger. I'm doing damage. He has no response. So let's just keep doing what we're doing here. So that fight, I just kind of stayed away from trying to go for submission. I don't think that was necessarily my plan going into it at all. Like I said, I was kind of afraid of like getting hit by him. So I definitely didn't want to do anything that was going to involve me getting hit by him in this fight. So, but I just felt so in control that it didn't feel like I needed to switch to submissions for this fight.
I think it's a pretty cool advantage because the same thought that's in your mind, like, I don't want to strike with this guy because I might get caught. He's thinking the same, like, shit, if I go to the ground, this fucking fight is over, right? So you have the striker guy in a much worse position because it's like he stands, he doesn't want to throw it too long because he'll give you an opening and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So look at that.
One of the things that's interesting between striking and grappling is that the positions of advantage when you're actually able to hit somebody are so different. Like when you're standing and you're striking with somebody, you can get an angle, at least if you're fighting somebody good, you get an angle for like a half second and then you can throw your strike. And then after that, like foreseeably, I'm going to square up with you and put my hands up or do whatever. You get these little glimmers of moments where you can do damage, right? And then but when it comes to grappling, if you actually get somebody down, it's like, I can control you for long periods of time and throw punches and knees and all these different things. And the advantage is completely in my favor.
Yeah.
It's a lot of striking exchanges on the feet, actually. So like people will talk about things like getting outside foot position to try to throw strikes. And it's like, yeah, that conveys some advantage, but it also gives me certain options. It's not as one-sided. Striking, like when you're standing in front of each other, unless one guy is just way less experienced than the other guy, then yeah, okay, I get it. But like the ground, man, it's like you're so safe when you're on top of somebody, right? Yeah. And he is in so much danger. So that's one of the cool things about like our sport and like what we do is if you start to learn how to hit people on the ground while controlling them, like, and you really know how to hit somebody with force, and you really learn how to control somebody, like it's a big advantage, especially with guys that don't really know how to recover from that. It's hard.
Or defend, which happens a lot. It's like, how is this guy fighting MMA and he can't defend a punch from the ground?
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy.
Exactly. And that's striking from the half guard too, right? Like you guys train that a lot here in at Hazel's. I always saw it. Like they're like, hey, don't mount. Half guard, it's a great place for you to strike the guy. You can control him well. You just strike him from there. It's amazing. And that leg drag that you keep doing, like it's exhausting, right? Like the guy gets like, it's like you taking pieces of the guy every time you do that. So it's amazing. And
most people's focus is in those positions is just trying to get back up, right? So if I'm doing things that make it hard for them to get back up, it's tough. It's a long day underneath there, you know.
Hey, can I give props? That was a nice breakdown. It
was an awesome breakdown.
I was like, what the hell? That's a good breakdown. All the other ones, I'm like, we did a podcast the other day. This is a really free flowing show thing. Sure. And at one point it got so boring. I was like, guys, excuse me, let me go get my nail clippers or like my cuticle remover because I can't take this anymore. I just got up and I went to go get my nail. But this was a great breakdown. You're good at doing this, Gary. You're good at doing this. So how is your this is a very famous thing that Brazilians probably don't know about this, but there's a very famous thing here in the US called the Garry Tonon diet. And trust me, I've been on it since the COVID started. So I know that obviously you're fit when you're going over to these fights and stuff. So you have an ability to control weight. I'm assuming you have some understanding, and you do the Garry Tonon diet, which is like the hamburgers, the pizzas. Is that correct? Do you do that on the side, but not really, because you do know what you have to do to show up on weight and stuff as a professional, right?
Yeah, weighing in, and being in fight shape or fight weight, I should say, because your weight isn't necessarily indicative of what shape you're in my opinion. Not entirely anyway,
Yes, no.
It certainly can be once you get to the extremes.
Trust me.
But yeah, I went to school for exercise science. I had to take diet classes. I had to take kinesiology. So I had quite a bit of
understanding,
study involved with learning about, just general health and wellness and the human body. And so I have a pretty good idea of how it all works. By the way, there's no correlation with knowledge and practice, though, in that regard. So just because I do know that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to practice it. But I'm just kind of the mindset that to an extent, the diet is not going to be the end all be all of performance. I think that as long as you're getting the general nutrients that you need and you take a vitamin every once in a while and these sorts of things. Now, general health and wellness is a different story, but I'm talking about performance. For performance, you're probably going to be cool. Now, leading up to fights, I obviously have to have special diets to make sure that I lose whatever weight I need to lose so I can weigh whatever weight I weigh and then gain some weight back when I finally get to the fight. So that's a whole different process. But yeah, on a day-to-day basis, do I have the most healthy diet in the world? No. I've actually gotten a little bit better recently. Surprisingly, through COVID, I actually started eating a little bit cleaner than I normally do. And the reason for that is I just had a little bit more time on my hands to cook and things. Like I got an air fryer and I'm just making food, it's not always the healthiest food. Like I'm still making hamburgers and stuff, but I feel like because I'm not buying food at gas stations anymore, which is probably the majority of my food previously, that even just that alone has made me a little bit healthier. So I think that as I'm I know 29, it's not that old, but I'm just saying, as I'm getting a little bit older, I'll probably start taking those things more and more seriously. And I've even just in the young age that I'm at, I noticed that things change, from when I was 22 to when I'm 29 now. I don't necessarily get away with eating the same way that I did previously for as long or whatever the case may be. So I definitely watch it a little bit more now, but I'm still not of the mindset. I think a lot of people exude this, that diet is going to fix all of your problems. And if your jiu-jitsu sucks, your jiu-jitsu sucks. I'm sorry, but no amount of diet is going to fix that, and I think it's one of those situations where a lot of people lack a lot of control in their life.
So there's no hope for you, Hafa. No hope for you.
No hope for me.
No matter how you eat. You're fucked.
I'll just eat a lot. I'll get heavier. At least I can weight on top of people.
I will say this. If you're out of shape and you're eating healthier, it's definitely going to improve performance. But I'm dealing in a world that I'm talking about with professional athletes. It's we're all pretty much in shape. You know what I mean? Yeah. With the exception of Roy Nelson or something. I think for the most part, most MMA fighters and jiu-jitsu guys, we're in shape. One guy might be a little bit less in shape than the next guy or whatever. But for the most, dude, we exercise for a living. How out of shape could we possibly be unless you're just actively not training, right? So I focus on other things when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I would say my diet's kind of cleaned up a little bit recently. So
it was funny because Garry came to compete in one of the tournaments, and then we picked somehow something. I had to take him to the hotel and stuff, and I go, Garry, you need to eat, right? So I'm like, okay, what do you want? A salmon with a little grilled things. He's like, no, pizza would be good. And I was like, what? I'm like, what? I'm like, everything I've ever learned has been tossed out the window right now. What? It was perfect. This is the Garry Tonon diet. So not too much on the Garry Tonon diet. Now, I want to go back a little bit to one and talk about, you had a phenomenal match with Aoki. I don't remember how long ago that was, honestly.
Yeah. Right. But before I first started fighting MMA, it was probably 4 to 6 months prior or something like that.
Yeah. So
can can I just make a quick observation here?
Yeah.
She has notes. Look at, do you see that? Do you notice that?
Oh,
She's
okay.
looking down. Yeah.
It's a big-
I would expect nothing less out of Rose.
Look at
That's
that.
not for you, Gary. Here's for him.
Less out of
Hey,
Rose.
I was just trying to get that. I get one every podcast we do it. So I got it.
I got a finger for him. Every podcast he
Every
gets a finger. It's
podcast I get one. So I was just
Oh,
waiting for. I was
sure.
just trying to get that. Mission accomplished.
There you go, Hopper. No, the reason why I wrote notes is because it was hard for me to keep up with all the names. And from one, it's there, and I don't follow MMA as much anymore. And I wanted to make sure that, I had this stuff down. So you had a match with Aoki at the lightweight division. No, I'm sorry. He's on the lightweight division and you're on the featherweight division. Yes. And the match, you almost seemed a little bit bigger than him, right? So how is this cut to the one? Because featherweight over at one is 155, correct? Not 145 like the UFC. Correct. So how is this cut doing? Like, what is this cut doing for you? How are you cutting this? And do you walk? What is your walk around weight, number one? And how is the cutting for you?
Sure, I'll go into it as deep as I think makes sense. First of all, Aoki is just kind of a weird body type. He's definitely it's funny because you were thinking the same thing that I was thinking. Like when I was going into this, I saw Aoki kind of walking around like with normal clothes on. And I'm like, it's like this dork, he's just like a schoolboy or something. Like he's not in shape, right? And then I got out there and I felt him and I saw him and it's a totally different thing. So he, in my opinion, I think he's a little bit bigger than me, but I can understand when you look at the two of us, how you would see me and think like maybe I'm bigger and stronger or something like that. I mean, he's a big, strong dude, trust me. But anyway, I would say we're close, similar sizes, but he's definitely a little bigger, for sure taller. Now anyway, going into the weight cuts. So this is what most people don't understand about one, and I don't mind explaining it because it's confusing. They name the weight classes differently, and that's kind of what throws everybody off. But I understand why they do that because the weigh-in protocol are so vastly different that nobody that fights in the weight class that they fight in UFC, I don't think would realistically be able to make that same weight class in one championship. If they did, if they were able to, it would be because in the UFC, they're fighting at a weight that's very close to their walk-around weight or not too far off. Like, for example, Frankie Edgar for years literally walked around at 156 pounds, and he was fighting 155. So a guy like that, sure, he can make 55 in ONE FC, but there's not too many of those guys around anymore. Yep. The pretty much common practice is most dudes are losing from their walk-around weight between 25 to 30 pounds, if not more, depending upon the heavyweights and that sort of thing. So
I mean, even Frankie went down already, right?
Yeah, Frankie's going down now. That's why I said previously.
135, 145, I think.
I mean, dude, Frankie honestly could be fighting, if he wanted to, he could fight 25. I mean, it's just miserable, but I'm sure like he has the body, his frame is of that of a 20, like of a 25 or for most people that fight. I mean, that's just how it is. I get it though. I mean, he was successful for so long at 55. Why? It's kind of like that conversation we had before. Like, why change it? So I get why it took so long for him to make that move. But anyway, so the weigh-ins work like as follows. You weigh in 2 times, 2 days before and a day before you fight. Both times you have to, after you make weight, or I guess technically you make weight second, you have to pass a hydration test. So your urine that's coming out has to be of a certain hydration. They measure that with something called a spectrometer. It's not that important, but it shoots a beam of light through the pee, and that's how they tell based off of the water as a constant how hydrated your urine is, or if it's diluted with other substances or whatever the case may be. So anyway, if you lose like more than a few pounds or so at the wrong time, like this measurement could be off. I'll give you an example. When I fought Aoki, or I shouldn't say fought, grappled, whatever. Just I don't want to confuse people. When I had that match, I actually failed hydration the first time. And that was at 170 pounds. So this is a weight class 15 pounds heavier than the weight class I'm fighting right now. And I was like, man, that was weird. And the reason it happened was I did a 9:30 a.m. workout, and the weigh-in was at like 1 p.m. or something, right? I thought that was plenty of time for me to rehydrate after training or whatever. But I guess the way that the body works and the way that when your urine shows hydration, I guess that wasn't enough time to show that I was hydrated. So I failed, but you actually get, as long as you can make hydration within, let's say 4 hours of when the official weigh-in is, you can still succeed. So I came back like a few hours later, I had drank some more water, and 170 was really easy for me to make. So I was easily well under the weight, and I was hydrated. Now, if you fail hydration or the weight, you now have to make weight. If you fail completely, like you aren't able to make it within that day, you now have to make weight and hydration for the next 2 days, including the day of your fight at 9 a.m. So the consequences for not making weight are kind of rough. Like, to have to make weight the day of your fight is pretty tough, you know? So anyway, you can play with it a little bit, but you're not losing. There's no way you're like losing 30 pounds from your walk around weight. I mean, it's impossible. You're not. I mean, short of doing some really nefarious practices, which I'm sure are potentially possible, maybe like injecting urine or something like that into your bladder. Like, I don't know, maybe if somebody wanted to take it that far, I guess you could get around the rule structure. But other than that, I can't think of anything that would allow somebody to cut more than like 7 to 10 pounds day of. You know, like of the weigh-in, that's I think it's a stretch. So for me, by the time
that sounds like a stretch. I don't even think they cut that much.
Yeah. By the time the days leading to the fight or whatever the case may be, I'm usually around like 162-ish. That's when I get my body down to. Now, I do that through special diets and all these sorts of things, cutting carbs and salt and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I get my rough body weight down to about 162-ish, and then I hydrate a lot, and then I work out a little bit, and then, you pee and it's hydrated and you weigh in fine. So I'm pretty goddamn close, to whatever the weight is before I'm weighing in. It's not like a UFC cut where dude, sometimes people are a full division above wherever they were when they start cutting weight. So
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So the reason why I asked you this is because obviously I would assume that, let's say you get the belt, and this is just my assumption, okay? So completely just tell me you're completely wrong. But I'm assuming that once you get the belt in the featherweight division, that there's a possibility that you could go up to the lightweight division, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd love to do that. I really would. It's a big goal. It's a big goal for me to be able to capture 2 belts. It's been done before by other guys in their organization. So for me to be able to do that would be great. It'd be a great opportunity. I mean, obviously I'm trying to accomplish one task at a time, but I've been saying since I got there that was a goal of mine. So I think I'm well on my way to capturing the first title. And, after that, it's going to be, it's going to open up doors to catch the second title and maybe have that rematch with Aoki in MMA instead of Jiu Jitsu. Right. So it opens up some cool opportunities to play around in that division. I also heard Sage Northcutt might be cutting some weight and then fighting in. Somebody told me he was fighting 55. I can't believe that. He's much bigger than me.
He's a big guy. He's
hard
a
for me
big
to
boy.
believe that. 170, I think he could realistically make if he does it the right way. We'll see how that goes. If he gets to that division, that would be really cool. It'd be another great fight because I think he's a well-known guy that a lot of people respect.
I'll tell him that. We're recording with him on Friday.
Nice.
I'll send hello. I say
but
my brother Garry Tonon says hello. He's gonna freak out.
I only come to special ones, so I'm not coming on Friday. Just today, just to let you know. That already puts Garry at a whole different level. Just letting you know. I'm like, no, I'm just Garry this week. So
look, every time. Sorry to cut you, Rose.
Go ahead.
Every time I have someone that fights at ONE FC at the podcast, it's not ONE FC anymore. It's a ONE Championship.
Sure.
Don't mess that up.
I like for them to describe to the folks that are listening how is the whole event and the whole show over there, because people have no idea how big it is, how cool it is.
Yeah,
I mean, I know I watch, but we live kind of in a bubble, right? That's why we breed like MMA and Jiu Jitsu and stuff like that. But the average UFC fan has no idea what's going on there. We had Bibiano Fernandez here. He said, "Look, you're talking like big stretch limos and red carpets going in and people screaming. It's like it's crazy to think. How is it over there for you?"
It's very cool. I mean, obviously with COVID, things have changed a little bit, but that's everywhere, right? Like, let's talk about events in the past where, where things were a little bit more normal. It's cool, man. I mean, you go out to some of these different countries and things, and they have, certain athletes just have a huge following. When you go to like the Philippines or something, or Singapore, like all these different, they've done a great job in one of building up, local athletes from these different countries that they have their events. And it's just like Bibiano said, like, you show up in these countries and they're freaking out, and it's huge for them in those countries. And, it's just really cool to see, because a lot of times there are countries where like, MMA was probably not a thing, like, 6 years ago or something. It probably didn't mean anything to that country. And now, there's a huge fan base, and it's like a really big deal. And as far as the events are concerned, I think they do a great job, like with promotion and things. Sometimes when you look at the difference, because I've been to UFC events and Bellators and all these different things, and sometimes you look at the difference between the two, and I kind of feel a little bit more promotional value out of some of the stuff that one does. It feels a little bit more exciting, a little bit more like they're trying a little harder maybe to make it like this like really big exciting thing. And I think maybe the UFC, it's hard sometimes. I think you get complacent, when you run like a bigger corporation. I know this is going to sound weird, but I was talking to somebody about Verizon today, and how like the customer service is just, I mean, with any of these companies, it's just like impossible to deal with. And like, I wonder sometimes, it's like, well, they have the resources to make this painless. They have the resources to make their customer service the absolute best in the world, but they don't, because they know they're so big that it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You need them either way, right? So
so I feel as though that's kind of how the UFC feels sometimes. So they're not as hungry. So like the certain things are just not done as well as they should be.
I think it's a matter of the focus on what they're promoting. I think the UFC, it's much more focused on promoting the brand UFC and not exactly the fighter. Like Bellator. You see like Naaman Gracie fight. He's on a giant screen. There's a ramp coming down, and all the attention is on him, and his name is flashing there. It's kind of like what one does, right? Like it's Garry Tonon time, and it's all you. It's kind of like they promoting you as a fighter, not the organization itself. I think I like that a lot. I remember the old Pride days when I watched that kind of stuff. It's like I kind of love it.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's just it's a really great thing, man, to be able to go out to all these different countries and feel the energy from different places, and every fan's kind of a little bit different. Every country's a little bit different, and it's definitely one of the appeals to fighting out here with them, is being able to do that and be able to experience something different. And I fell in love with the promotion very early, like when I started working with them. So, a lot of people ask why I ended up here as opposed to other organizations. And like, I mean, they really made an effort, kind of like what you're saying. They really made an effort to like make a relationship with me as an athlete. And like other places didn't really do that. It's kind of what I'm saying. It's like they just expect, right? Like UFC just expects me to like call them. And like
exactly,
and right?
And like that should be your goal, right? It's like, no, I'm good here.
They're like, whatever, he'll come to us eventually or something, So
I have to say that this 2 days ago or yesterday, I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, I had a meeting with Warren Wong, which is the doctor for ONE FC, and I have become some sort of like an advocate, fighters' rights advocate in the past 3-4 years. Because I started discovering about CTE, understanding a little bit more, and then what entails. And when I talked to him, we had this long conversation, and for the first time, I felt that someone in the business of MMA, with a promoter, with an organization, really cares for the fighters. Back in the days, apparently they had something that if you didn't make weight, if you made weight at on the first day, you would get a bonus. And then, they started doing this whole thing on the last day that you have to wait on the day. It's just to discourage people of not making weight and being correct on the first day. So, but it was so refreshing to be able to talk to someone that really cares. And he said, one, shares no expenses when it comes to the health and safety of the fighter. And most of the organizations, when I say, hey, do you mind if I create some sort of a protocol, or just not, some writing so people understand the signs and symptoms when they get hit in the head or da-da-da. he was like 100% in. He trained jiu-jitsu. I think he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, or brown belt in jiu-jitsu, the gentleman. And it was really refreshing to see an organization that really cares for its fighters. And I think that says a lot when you see the guys and how happy they are over there. Viviano seems really happy there, and everybody seems happy. So I think you made a very, very good decision. It was a smart decision all the way across the border. So
Thanks.
I think that you did the right thing.
Thank you.
That's really cool. Look, do you have any plans for ADCC this year? What's going on there?
We'll see what happens. I know things have been delayed with ADCC because of COVID-related things. They were having trouble flying people into the country, so the trials got delayed and all these things. So I'm still not 100% on when it's happening. I don't know if that was announced and I didn't see it, but so far as I know, it's still kind of like TBA sort of situation. But I mean, I still love jiu-jitsu. I love competing in jiu-jitsu. I've been offered different. I think they're going to do another Who's Number One event sometime soon with Flo that they want me to be a part of, and like. MMA just takes number one seat, and like when I figure out what's going on there, then I can say, hey, I'll compete in this or whatever the case may be. And that's what happened with the last ADCC was like basically I found out that like I wasn't going to be fighting something, whatever happened, and I was like, all right, I'll do ADCC then,
Yeah,
so that's pretty much how it is for me. So I would love to do it. I would love a perfect world where I get to plan the dates of all these things and like I can do both whenever I want, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So I kind of have to hear from one as to when things are going to happen for me, and then I can plan adequately for like whatever I'm going to do in grappling. So we'll see.
Gary, give me like one person that you would like to compete against, and I'm not a fan of ADCC rules. I like the submission only rules.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure.
I like the hopeful on submission only.
Sure.
So give me someone, or maybe a top 2 or 3 guys that you would like to face one day. Do you have something like that?
Sure. So as far as like within my weight class and like guys that I still have, big reasons to fight them, or grapple them, I guess I should say. Crone is like at the top of the list, obviously, like with the history that we have from years ago.
Fuck, dude, hold on. Who else in my family want to be? He'd be my husband twice. My brother once, and now he's after my cousin. I'm like, get rested. Give it a break, Gary.
Yeah, I know.
God,
Well, he's got the win over me, so
yeah, let's leave it like that. Okay, 3-1, we're good. Okay, let's be friends.
I would love that. I don't think it's going to happen personally. I think maybe one day in MMA, if we're in the same spot at the same time, we'll see.
All right.
I don't think so, though. I think more than likely it's not going to happen. The next one probably would be JT Torres, because he's at the top of my division right now as far as, he won the last ADCC. So obviously that's a big one. I've lost 3 matches to him now, 2 0-0 decisions. And then the last fight that we had, I kind of like tried to sit for a Sumigashi, and he got 2 points like for a takedown. So, I mean, I'm not debating that he should have gotten 2 points. I'm simply saying that like it was a very close match. By the end of it, I had him in a deep knee bar. Like, we're neck and neck, and like it feels like there's unfinished business there. So like Rose, speaking to what you're saying, like I feel like for him, like it only makes sense to do like a sub only match, because we've already had like, hey, we're going to both compete, and then somebody's going to decide who's going to be the victor. I would love to have a match with JT where it's like, hey man, like only one of us makes it out of here alive.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Would you do combat jiu-jitsu? Would you do combat jiu-jitsu?
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed due to my contract. I've talked to one about this. I was actually supposed to do combat jiu-jitsu one of their very first events.
I remember that.
And I asked one about it, and they're like, hey man, it's just too close to MMA. We're worried about you getting cut and stuff. Like they're just not cool with it. So as far as like physically, especially because I have the MMA background now, I would be more than happy to do it. It's just a question of like I can't.
Contract question, yeah. But submission only, JT Torres, you're down.
Yeah, love that. Lucas Lepri, I also feel like we have some unfinished business there, like some tough matches with each other. So I'd love to have that match again. And of course, sub-only format's my favorite with those sorts of things. But I would take most types of rules against those guys. I'm trying to think. I would also love to have another rematch, even though I have already submitted him. Gilbert Burns, I think, is really rising as a mixed martial arts star. Yeah. It's probably going to be, I think he might have the title sometime pretty soon. So I would love to have that match just purely because it's more important to people now because people probably don't even know that we fought before. Many of them.
Yeah, you got a lot of eyes on it too. I'm doing a podcast with him on Friday too, so
Sure.
I'll pass the message.
Also,
I'll just keep challenging everybody on behalf of Garry Tonon. I was like, hey, Garry wants to fight you. You know that?
Yeah. He's also he's another one, Rose, though, too, that like he really started to figure out what he needed to do in MMA. Like he's integrating skills. He's doing very well. Like he's not just a jiu-jitsu guy out there. So that's really cool, you know? And another thing is with guys like him, it's one of the rare opportunities that I have to like mix organizations, right? Like I don't normally like speaking about Crone, for example, like what we were talking about before, like a lot, oh man, why don't you fight him? And it's like, guys, we're in different organizations. They say the same stuff about like AJ and Dylan Dennis. It's like, guys, I'd love to try to start a fight with these guys, but let's be realistic. It's not happening anytime within the next couple years unless one of these guys leaves an organization and signs another contract. It's just, you know,
if there's a submission-only match somewhere.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Grappling is a way to bridge that gap, right? Like that's a way to bridge that gap. We can have those matches, and it's like, all right, well, we don't get to watch them fight each other, but at least we get to see something. We get to see those matches with each other. I got to have that with Davi Ramos, like at the beginning or the end of. I think it was the end of 2019. I got to have a match with Davi Ramos, and that was really cool because it's like, where am I going to get that opportunity? He's fighting in the UFC, so like,
how big is that guy, Gary?
Dude, he's jacked. He's a little shorter. He's a little shorter, but he's huge. Like he's a monster. He came in very big, but it was a good match. I had a great time. You know, that was really cool too.
I think he won over Gilbert Burns on ADCC São Paulo too, right?
Sorry,
Davi Ramos, yeah.
Yes, like a crazy.
Crazy.
No, it was the flying armbar was on Lepre, right?
I think so.
Okay.
They were like exchanging.
I don't know
slaps.
what the
was an ugly
like
fight
with Gilbert. I don't remember.
It was an ugly fight. They were slapping each other. It was really because they were really friends. Gilbert Burns actually got mad at me because we did a podcast and he was explaining what happened, and they were super friends and they kind of like have no relationship after that.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And you talk about girls.
You know.
Come on, guys.
On Saturday, if you start getting messages from Gilbert Burns,
because you do the little gossip shit, right?
Happened,
is that the little gossip snips that you put it out? I'm
gonna tell them. I say, look, I did a podcast with Garry.
So let me tell what happens here. So Hoffa doesn't have jack or shit to do when the podcast ends. So he's like, what little piece can I do to call people to watch the podcast? So he gets like,
I don't do that.
Not anymore.
No. She's gonna say I do like clickbait. No. I don't even do the clips. Okay, we have a friend that does the clips, and what happened was he cut that one piece that Gilbert talks about Davi Ramos, and he made a clip of like a minute long, and he tagged both guys on the Instagram post.
Yeah. So you're in a stand. You didn't see it in any moment.
No, I saw after it was posted. And then what happened was like the guys thought like we were kind of like throwing them against each other, which kind of that's what happened anyways.
Something similar happened with me and what's his name that I fought in ADCC. I don't know why. Renato Canuto. Not that we were ever friends. I wouldn't call us friends by any stretch of the word, but. After our match, I had noticed that there was like a tooth mark in my wrist, right? And I was like, oh man, like he bit me. But like I didn't mean it in a way like he did it like in a dirty way and to try to get out of his position. I just think like the guillotine slid into his mouth or something, you know, and like the tooth got dug into my wrist. But like Flo like cut the clip so that it was like me saying like he bit me, and then like everybody started calling dirty and shit. And I was like, guys, like I did not. That's not what I was trying to do, I swear.
Yeah.
Hoffa the champ. Hoffa is the champ of doing that. I'm kidding. He doesn't do it anymore. It's over now. We already went through that. But it was like, bro, don't say that over here because he's going to use this clip later. People are like, what?
No, I'll never do that.
But no, this is really cool. So, Garry, give me like top 3 all-time, your favorite grapplers. It can be from the past, the legends, passed away, whatever it is that, you know, somebody in the past or present, your top 3 grapplers, your top 3 MMA fighters, and your top 3 female.
Do a top 5. Right. We have a thing that we do top 5 with everyone. Do a top five. Top five.
Top five might be a lot, but I'll start with top three and see if I can go further than that. We'll see how it goes.
Hafa, you're just a guest here today, Hafa. It's a conversation between friends.
What was I gonna say? So, all right. So, jiu-jitsu, like obviously, Hodger is was an unstoppable force for a long time, and so I always looked up to him. The only thing with Hodger is he's got such an interesting body type that it made me, through the years, kind of shy away from watching too much of Hodger because I was worried that like maybe some of the stuff that he was doing was going to be hard for me to do, because it's like, all right, well, this is a giant dude, like maybe being able to cross collar choke everybody from the mount is not in the cards for me. I don't know. Yeah. Right. But I always really looked up to Hodger. I actually, when I was, ironically, I know that Gordon and him have all kinds of beef now, but when I was coming up, like I want to say like as a blue belt or something, I used to watch a lot of Andre Galvao because he was actually at the time, I was a middleweight. I was actually a little heavier. I was competing at middleweight, and he was competing around the same weight class. He got much bigger after that. But so I would watch some of his tape. I kind of stopped after a while and just watching other people, but that was somebody I looked up to a little bit. And then also Ricardo Almeida, because he was Tom DeBlas, was my original instructor's coach. So I used to watch a lot of his footage and stuff too. So I look up to him a lot. So those were like three guys that, I think as I was working my way up through the ranks, I looked up to a lot. And then now, I'll be a little, I'll be a little biased, I guess, and talk about, one of my teammates. Obviously, Gordon was a student of mine for a long time, and then, eventually basically became a training partner, and was learning, from John as I was learning from John and stuff. And man, I'm super proud of the kid, and I really look up to him as well, for his jiu-jitsu in the way that he does things. And it's very calculated. It's very he's a very different type of fighter than me. Even though we both have a lot of success, it's very different. It's in very different ways, and he always impresses me. So he's definitely one of my favorite jiu-jitsu guys as well. I don't know. Nobody else is really crazy coming to mind. Even like a guy like that, even guys like Gilbert and Davi, always, I liked their style as well. They seemed very aggressive and submission oriented. So, all right. So MMA fighters. Let's see. So George St Pierre, I think it's hard for anybody to deny that he's one of the best ever. So just as well, I get to work with the guy every once in a while. He would come in and grapple.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's just amazing. What an opportunity. I mean, that's actually how a lot of people ask how I met John Danaher and how I built a relationship with him. That's kind of how that all happened. I was training at Henzo's every so often, and I guess I had kind of a scrambly jiu-jitsu style that he thought was similar to Nick Diaz. So he brought me in on one of the camps for George, and I would fly to Montreal once a week for that. And then I got to meet George, and I was training. I was in college at the time, but I was like, screw that. I'm like, we're missing classes. We got to do whatever we need to do to train with George St Pierre, So I felt like that was a crazy opportunity to have that just kind of came at me randomly, but I took it. And so that I always looked up to him and still do. I watch a lot of his tape as I'm trying to practice. As far as integration is concerned, guys, if you're out there and you're a jiu-jitsu guy, okay, and you're like, hey, I want to get involved in mixed martial arts, there couldn't possibly be a better person for you to watch than George St Pierre, and this is why. He knows how to go from a standing position to takedowns. And if you don't know how to go from a standing position where you're throwing punches at somebody's face to takedowns, and you do jiu-jitsu, you're going to have a really tough time in there. Two people I would say you'd watch, actually, and this is the second one that I'm going to mention anyway, and Damian Maia. Okay, Damian Maia is another big one. He does it in a very different way. He often pushes people to the fence, and he does his work there to take people down most of the time. But both of those guys have found a way to take this very dangerous standing position and quickly take people down to the floor. So it's a whole long story as to how they do it, but watch what they do and pay close goddamn attention, and I promise you're going to do a lot better because of it. Those guys paved the way for you to do exactly what you want to do. Watch them. Because there's so many people that I'm seeing do MMA, and I'm like, it's clear that they're not paying attention to any of that stuff.
It all makes, sorry to interrupt you real quick, Gary, but it all makes so much sense to me now when you said that you went to train with him for such a long time, because George to me is a true martial artist, right? He's just well-rounded everywhere. So by having possibly that exposure that you had with him helped make it to the point that you are right now. And then you're able to assimilate that. And that's how you've been growing the way you have. Because that's what I was thinking to myself. I'm like, Gary's not a grappler. He's not an MMA fighter. He's a martial artist. So that's the difference. And it's not everybody that's that way. So it makes sense that you had such a close relationship with George that it made you, it probably helped you with where you are right now. So it makes sense.
It helped a lot. I never sparred with George or anything like that. He's given me some tips and things here and there. You know, we didn't have, it was never a coaching relationship, but just being around him and respecting him and stuff. And
like you never spar with him?
No, never. Well, just jiu-jitsu, not like MMA sparring.
No,
I've never
MMA
done MMA sparring with him. Thank God. Probably.
Yeah, no, but it's the connection.
What it called for.
Yeah, it's the clear understanding of this connection that you have that most people don't have. That is what makes the difference in here, I feel.
Absolutely.
I got that Garry Tonon diet right there on the drink.
Yeah.
That's great. We'll get it in.
I'm all here on the vodka only. I'm kidding.
So more MMA guys. So, all right, another big one. I think this is like kind of a given for most people is Khabib. Khabib is just such a dominant fighter. I think, you know, maybe his early career was a little bit more questionable of the quality of opponents, but I think it's pretty much guaranteed now. It's like, hey, man, like, I mean, he's fighting absolute killers out there, and he's doing very, very well. And he's literally dominating, decimating competition.
Everyone.
There's no question about him. Sorry?
Have you trained with Khabib before?
No. A couple of his guys came by to Henzo's a few times, but I never actually physically trained with him. But another thing that's very special about what he's done is exactly that he's done something very different. It's not like he just came out there and he started knocking everybody out like a, you know, maybe he had like amazing head kicks or something like a crow cop. It's like that's been done before. Like what he's doing out there has never been done before. You know, now there are maybe people that are learning how to do it, but what he's doing out there has never been done before. Same thing with Damian Maia. What he did, nobody ever did before. George, what he did, nobody really ever did before. Yeah. And so these are like real, true pioneers. I mean, obviously there were pioneers before them, like in early MMA, but of modern MMA that I was a part of watching and stuff like that, these are the pioneers of how I understand the concept of MMA. Because MMA wasn't always the way that it is now, where it's integrated skills. It used to be like, hey, I'm going to come out, I'm the jiu-jitsu guy, and like that was great for a little bit. Yeah. And now it's different, you know, because everybody knows different things. But
I think in the past you had a mix of really good, like strong guys in one art, right? But all like it was like a bunch of tough guys. Yeah, let's go and fight. Not necessarily athletes.
Oh man, go back.
Right?
Anybody that's listening to this, go back and watch like UFC 1 interviews. Oh, it's just.
I was literally gonna say, are you talking about the first few UFCs?
Not even. I'm talking about like, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years ago.
What I'm saying is like, to the effect that he's talking about right now, like the confidence and aggression, and like it was almost like professional wrestling, like level.
Yes, but it
like
was real, right?
Like some karate guy would come out and he'd be like flinging elbows and stuff like that. He'd just be like, he's like, not only am I going to beat this guy, I'm going to, you know, break his spine and take out his spine, something like that, you know? And I was like, man, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. But I think we saw not just the evolution of the martial arts, but those guys not just being like tough guys, they're like professional athletes now, and that the whole thing changed the game.
Yes, it's just different. It's an evolution of the sport, right? So you know, I'm thankful for all of the iterations of the athletes that have come through and done the work that they did, because we wouldn't be here without them. So you know, I'm thankful to everybody. And then, hey, I'll be biased again, even though I guess the first option was biased with George. But go biased again, and I'll say like Neiman is like one of my favorite guys out there, because he's like an up and comer, and like He's been doing amazing things, and like you guys said, he's really integrating skills really well. And man, I just love. I loved participating in his camps and being there with him, even before he was doing MMA actively. Like he would do jiu-jitsu with us and stuff. Man, I really loved training with him and stuff. And I think he's a really motivated athlete, and it's a really cool thing to see, again, because he's coming from a similar background with jiu-jitsu. And I know that, like, he's already successful, but I know that it's just the beginning, and it's going to be even more so. So it's just so cool to have somebody like that doing so well in this sport. So awesome. That'll be, I think I'll leave off with that one maybe as my.
Give me 2 or 3 girls only. Then you don't even have to go deep in fight. 2 or 3 girls that you're like to watch. It could be it could be MMA, it could be grappling, it could be anything. Hoffa's like, what? You're gonna mess up my whole thing right now.
No,
all right. So in women's volleyball,
just cut it.
Just cut it.
There's this Brazilian girl. No. Man. So as I was coming up through jiu-jitsu, I would watch like the women fight as well, and like there's a lot of really awesome competition out there. As far as like modern day jiu-jitsu women, I don't know if I really follow too many. The only one that maybe I know is what is that guy's brother? What's Mikey Musumici's sister's name? You guys know?
Who's that?
Tammy. I think it's Tammy Musumeci maybe. So their story is kind of cool. Those two, the brother and sister, they kind of actually came from a similar area in Jersey that I came from. I think they grew up in New Brunswick or something at first or whatever, and they've done really, really well. So I would say I respect her a lot and everything that she's done in the sport. Other people, I would watch a lot of Michelle Nicolini, and Jazari Matuda impressed me a lot in some of the submission events that she did in some of the shows that I was a part of. And who else? As far as female fighters are concerned, we have. I don't know. I looked away for a second. She was gone.
I blinked for a second and Rose was gone. I was like, "What happened?"
Yeah, disappeared. I think there was like a delay in the film, so she like
right.
But as far as female fighters are concerned, my bias pick will be Caitlin Chunigan, who trains with us. I'm probably not pronouncing her last name right, but I think it's
Chokagan.
Chukagan.
Yeah,
and, she's really cool to have around as well. It's just another driven athlete and actually one of her recent fights, she did a lot of like really awesome jiu-jitsu.
We lost cool Rose. Too. She's losing connection, or her computer died. Yeah. Well, we close to wrap it up. I just want to. It was funny that you mentioned Michelle Nicolini, because I put a post on Instagram asking people to send questions to you. Probably won't see it, but she sent a question.
Oh, did she?
She's a really good friend. I was just in Brazil. I was at the Damian new school. And I did a couple of trainings with Michelle. She's amazing, 8-time world champion. So her question is, if you would like to be known at ONE FC, like the best grappling, just like kind of like what Damien represents at the UFC. If that's something
that's an interesting question. I definitely want to be known, whether it's ONE FC or mixed martial arts in general. I definitely
ONE Championship. They ask me, say, it's very important. Just a gentle reminder: it's not ONE FC anymore. It's the ONE Championship.
Yeah. No, it's hard because sometimes you want to, like, mentally you want to shorten it, right? And you're like, oh,
yes. It's kind of like missing something. She says either one or ONE Championship.
Yes.
I was like, it's kind of like missing,
yeah.
right?
I hear you. I kind of like mess that up all the time. I get it. So yeah, in ONE or mixed martial arts in general, just like as a whole, I definitely want to be known as someone who brought dangerous grappling ability to the sport, right? And I definitely want that to be part of my legacy. Like I definitely see me submitting many people in the future, and hopefully that in ways that are unconventional, that people haven't seen before. So in many ways, I absolutely want that to be a part of what I do. But in a sense, on another side of things, I almost want to say no to that. And the reason why I want to say no is because I also just want to be known as one of the best mixed martial artists ever, right?
And like George St Pierre, right? Like you don't say, "Oh my God, the striking of George St Pierre," or you don't say the grappling of George. You just say, "Fucking George St Pierre is the best," right?
Sure. So on the other side of that coin, I would say, hey Rose, on the other side of that coin, I would say no. I kind of want to show all of the skills of mixed martial arts and let jiu-jitsu be one of them. But I think the fact of the matter is, like, let's be honest, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for so long. It's probably close to 15 years now. I've been doing it for so long that the likelihood that on some level, that's not always going to be like the best aspect of my mixed martial arts game. It's kind of unrealistic. So on some level, I think we're always going to see that shine more than everything else, right? So, I mean, yes and no. Let's see what happens. Because honestly, nowadays, I'm about getting into the cage and winning whatever way I can win, because stuff is getting more and more dangerous every fight that I go in. And like, man, I just don't want to get KO'd viciously in front of my friends and family and everybody out there. So whatever way I have to go out there and it feels right to win, like that's what I want to happen, you know? So if that means that every fight I end up trying to submit somebody, or if that means that I'm going to go out there and grapple box like the fight that I broke down, or if it means maybe I do a striking exchange with somebody, like for example, somebody like Shinya Aoki, I could see that turning into like a little bit of a stand-up battle, because why not? You know, I don't feel like he's so much of a specialist that I couldn't maybe outstrike him there. So, you know, whatever it takes in MMA to win.
And I think we could see that a little bit on that fight you broke down for us. Like, you had the opportunity to submit that guy if you wanted to.
At least to try.
You know, when you go for that mount, that you start going really high, I was like, oh, he's going to go for an armbar. No, you just you saw the openings and you just say, hey, this is working. I'm just going to keep doing that. And I thought that was really cool. Just the mentality, you know, and the focus on the martial arts, not just like, hey, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, I have to submit this guy.
Yeah.
How is your family dealing with you fighting MMA? Do they like it? They don't like it? Or what are they?
Good question. Yeah, so my mom had mixed feelings. At the beginning, I think she really didn't want me to do it at all. I think, I mean, to be honest, jiu-jitsu was like that for her for a little while too. I don't think she was particularly happy about me doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. But yeah, my mom works at Children's, well, she used to work for many years at Children's Specialized Hospitals. So she would deal with a lot of different kids that would come in with special needs, and a lot of the reasons that they would be on, because she was working with a long-term care unit often, which basically means like they're like live-in residents at the hospital and stuff. Often they were in that place because of some severe head injury that they had endured, like maybe in a car accident or something like that, right? So because of that, I think she was very much kind of similar to like what some of the stuff you're talking about, Rose. She's very knowledgeable when it came to like, I don't know if they were calling it CTE at the time, but she's very knowledgeable.
Traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, just brain injury in general, whatever it was. I don't think she ever said those words to me specifically, but you know, she was concerned. You know, she's like, "Oh man, you know, you're taking punches to the head, this, that, and the other thing." And I kind of tried to frame it for her in a couple different ways. I was like, "Hey, listen," I was like, because she, you know, her and her family all follow, you know, football, right? Like they love the Steelers, right? It's Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm like, "Mom," I was like, "That's 10 times worse probably than what I'm doing," and I promise you, and maybe I'm wrong here, if I had the opportunity, if you heard that I had the opportunity to play professional football for your favorite team, would you tell me not to do it? Like, would you honestly sit here and say, no, you shouldn't do that? Probably not. Like, you know, like, let's get realistic. So I get it. Like, she cares about me, which is great. You know, it's cool to have a mom who cares. You know, I'm not upset about that. But I also think, like, you know, there's going to be life choices that I'm going to make. And, you know, I think I reassured her that I intend to do this in the most intelligent way possible and to try to reduce the amount of brain injury that I'm taking over time. I don't want to fight. I don't want to have fights where I'm just swinging for the fences and the other guy's doing the same. And that's the kind of brawls that I'm getting in. Like, that's not why I'm doing this. Like, I'm doing this to I'm doing this to win quickly, efficiently as I can, and do it as safely as possible. Like the idea to me, you know, as far as the striking part of what we do is concerned, it's like hit and don't get hit. Like it's not about I don't want to have any as cool as some of the fights are to watch that are 5-round brawls where two guys stand in front of each other and throw. I get it. It's awesome. It's great to watch. Me personally, as a human being, don't want to be involved in it. I'm not particularly interested in that. That's not my style. It's never going to be my style. We'll see what happens in the future, but I highly doubt it. It's not something I don't want to walk out of this, 10 years from now and not be able to talk or any of those things. And there are guys that have done striking martial arts that are not that way. A lot of the Muay Thai guys don't have much of a problem, with traumatic brain injury and things like that. The damage is distributed around the body a little bit more. They're a little safer with their training. They're not always trying to knock each other out every single time. So there's ways.
How do you guys train? Do you guys train like punching each other out? I mean, the most amount of damage doesn't actually happen in the fights. Crazy enough, it actually happens during training.
Sure.
So how do you guys? I can't imagine seeing you guys just brawling at each other's head or anything like that. Yeah. So how do you train?
Every so often you'll have one sparring session or two where it feels more like a fight than it probably should. I mean. We're not tap dancing here. We are fighting. So, I mean, it does. But you try as much as you possibly can to, one, find good training partners, right? Like that's a big part of it. Like, I mean, it's kind of like with anything. Like, if you were going to find a person to start a relationship with, and every single time that you guys had a disagreement, like that person immediately went into like crazy anger mode, or even let's say they started hitting you or something like that, something very aggressive. It's probably not a good sign. It's probably going to be tough to make that a relaxed, safe environment for two people to exist. It's the same thing when you're finding a sparring partner, in my opinion. Like if the first time I spar you, it's like I feel like you have anger or you're trying to hurt me or like these sorts of things. It's like, all right, well, maybe let's stay away from that guy. Or at the very least, we're going to have to set some clear boundaries. Like, hey, dude, like that can never happen again, right? Yeah. So that's the second.
You face that type of problem, right? Like you start getting well known and a little bit more famous. People just walk. I had Brandon Gibson. He's the striking coach of Jackson's MMA. So he's the striking coach for John Jones. And he was like, look, we go through like almost like a selective process of who we're going to bring it in. Because some of these guys, they want to get in there and just knock you out so they can tell people they did.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. And that's a big part of it. So that's tough to deal with also. I mean, that happens in jiu-jitsu too, even though it's not as dangerous. Like you go to teach a seminar somewhere. Oh man, I'd really love to roll with you. It's like, sure you would. 250-pound jacked monster who I don't know. I'm good. I'm fine. I think I'll just train with my training partners and,
it's
I'll live.
Funny you said that because I asked these questions to I think I asked Bochecha this question. I asked Rodolfo Vieira this question and Michelle Nicolini.
Dropping names like I can't even handle it anymore.
No, because look, when these guys go out, for seminars, that's exactly what Gary's saying. Like, if I'm going to a Garry Tonon seminar and I have a chance to roll with him, I want to learn. I don't want to fucking try to submit the guy, And they say it's crazy what they tell you. It's like they say, oh no, people come to kind of like rip your head off all the time, and it's unbelievable.
It's cool. I get it. I understand why some people are like, come to my seminar. I'll train with you. Like, great. I get it. But if my body, as far as I'm concerned now, has value. And like I can't continue to. I can't just be unsafe with that and just like take it for granted that like I'm not going to get seriously injured. I mean, even forget just training with people during seminars. Like I don't even like. I used to do things like skateboard and stuff, and it's like I don't even do things like that anymore because it's like, man, if I get hurt doing something stupid like that, like what's it worth to me to skateboard? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. Why? I don't need that in my life, right?
I remember that there was a match.
Don't have to.
There was a match for Margarida, and he said that he was apparently skateboarding in Hawaii, and he was doing this huge competition like Pan Americans or something. Then he couldn't compete because he was skateboarding and he fell and broke his hand. It's like, really, dude? Skateboarding before a match? Like, really?
Yeah.
It happens.
I mean,
it happens.
I still do stupid shit. I think before the last ADCC, I was playing like beach volleyball or something like that and diving all over the place trying before my matches and stuff. So, I mean, you can't completely eliminate it, but that's definitely one of the ways I try. Is like, yeah, when I'm doing seminars, like if I'm going to train with people, it's very selective. Occasionally, I'll do like some younger kids or something, but like not usually like anybody that's like somebody that looks like they came to try to kick my ass. But anyway, so the second thing that I was telling you about that's important is like setting up like boundaries, right? Like for example, you might set the boundary of like no spinning attacks because it's like kind of hard to see what you're going to be hitting before, and maybe pull it back in time to not hurt somebody. I remember I had an incident where I level changed for a takedown. I thought somebody was going for a spinning back fist, but it was a spinning back kick, and I ran into somebody's heel and split my eye open. And this was actually before I started training in a controlled environment. This is like years ago, but I'm just saying like stuff like that can happen, or you set some. At least one person has to wear headgear, so there's no headbutt, danger where you're going to get your eye split open and like things like that, right? So like little things that you can do that you can kind of control the environment a little bit better, and then just like setting the tone for sparring is also another boundary to set. It's just like, hey guys, like this is our goals. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to work on these skills. Sometimes even what you might do in a situation. I was actually talking to. Azam, he runs this academy called the Goat Shed. It's very specific to MMA in Miami. And he was telling me that he was having a problem with a particular athlete. And that athlete was like hurting people, like not even necessarily intentionally. He's just kind of like pretty good and like a lot of.
He's going extra rough.
Yeah, he's like, so what I did with him is like, instead of like just letting him have open sparring, I give him like objectives that he has to complete like each round. And it's like, maybe he has to land this many leg kicks and then this many body shots and that sort of thing. And he said that that's like made it a lot easier for him to have like sparring sessions where, he's not losing training partners and that sort of thing. Cause that's kind of hard too. Like if you're the guy that's constantly doing that to people, like let's say you're good. Right? Like really good. Like you use John Jones as an example. Like let's say you're John Jones and like you have the ability to like probably like knock out a lot of your training partners and stuff like that. It's like, man, if you're doing that to everybody you spar with, it's hard for you to find training partners now too. Now every time you have a fight camp, well, I can't just use the guys on my team. I got to fly in people, and because otherwise nobody's going to want to do it. I'm going to have to pay everybody to spar me. Because everybody's going to get their head knocked off, right? So that's kind of the way we do sparring. We'll do limited sparring, maybe certain rules and things, like maybe one guy can kick and one guy can punch. Little games that you play, and then we'll do our regular sparring too. But it's all with the purpose of like hit, don't get hit, and not trying to knock each other's head off, kind of sparring. So we actually spar every day, believe it or not. And
do you guys spar with gloves?
Oh yeah. 16-ounce gloves for our sparring. Occasionally, I try to encourage John a little bit closer to the fights to start doing some of the little glove stuff, because there's a certain feeling that you get when you walk out into the cage and you have 4-ounce gloves and hand wraps on that's hard to replicate if you're just doing 16-ounce glove sparring all the time and you don't stand in front of somebody with those little gloves and feel your fist is a different weight, and there's a different fear associated with the other person having that. So I don't know if I necessarily think it should happen all the time, because I think sometimes what that degenerates into is guys going so light that it's not really quite sparring anymore. Because, I mean, man, if you walk onto one of those little glove strikes, I've seen people get knocked out with it by accident. It's not even like the guy was really trying to knock anybody out, So you got to be really careful with that sort of thing. So, and then the other problem, obviously, like I just said, is, you with the little gloves, and if you're not going super light and you're going hard, and, now people are getting knocked out all the time. And not just knocked out, like it's so easy to cut people like that.
Yep.
You know, very easy, and then you're out of the fight, right? So
most people don't know, but those little gloves are supposed to protect your hand only. That's it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That's actually the reason why my dad left the UFC. I just had this conversation with him about that. He says the reason why he left the UFC is because they put the gloves on, and that way it doesn't protect the head; it actually protects the hands. I'm an advocate for guys training with no gloves at all, because then it just doesn't. You know, you're not going to be hitting somebody in the head really hard. Garry, I have 2 more questions, and then I'm done here. Yeah, sure. And I know that we've taken a lot of your time. What song do you sing in the shower with passion?
I knew he was going to
I sing a lot of songs in the shower with passion. I love singing, to be honest. A lot of people don't know this about me. I've mentioned in a couple of interviews, but I did I did all kinds of choir and stuff when I was a kid. Church choirs, and like in school I did choir. I did drama and all different kinds of things. So
it all makes sense. It all makes sense.
So
music is a big thing for me. I don't claim to be like particularly amazing or anything, but I think I hold my own. I do okay. I do a lot of karaoke. I did karaoke last weekend in Miami. I sang "When Doves Cry." I sang.
Can you sing us a little piece?
I knew that was coming too.
I'll sing a piece of. Let me see. What was the other one? I sang "Hooked on a Feeling" by Blue Suede. That's like one of my favorites. I crush that at karaoke.
Let's do it.
Let's see if I can get it. All right. I'm in an apartment right now, pretty late, so I probably shouldn't like belt this out, but I'll do my best. All right. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's all right. I'm hooked on a feeling. All right.
That
was awesome. And I cannot believe that Rose actually made someone sing on this podcast. She tries every time.
Yeah, because you're the one jacking up the whole thing, and they go, "Oh, I can't believe she did that again." If you just let it go, they'll all sing. Remember Saulo sang?
I
It was like, yeah,
I would expect that.
Look, I remember Paulo Filho. I had him on a podcast, and she's texting me, asking what song he sings on the shower. And I was like, "Hey, Paulo, we have a friend of yours here. She's asking." I asked him the question. He goes like this. Oh, no. So that's kind of my reaction when it goes.
I can't believe she does that.
Oh, my God.
That's good. That's a good question. That's funny, though. It gets probably gets a lot of interesting reactions out of people.
No, it's pretty cool. And then what is one habit that you cannot break?
A habit that I can't break. Well, Jiu Jitsu, for one. I'm trying to think. What do I do? I'm definitely a weirdo, so I'm sure there's something weird that I do that's like hard. Continuously changing my facial hair.
I never know how you're going to show up. It's going to be blonde, and I think that's great. And I think that goes the theater, the GSP train, the whole thing. Now it's almost like it makes sense, the whole picture here.
Sure.
And there's no stopping for you, Garry. This is really exciting. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hafa, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm all good. So like we are her guests. Go.
I was telling Tammy that I was like, actually, Hafa is the owner of the show. I just come in once in a while, but it looks like I'm the one. But yeah. So no, I just want to thank you so much. We are so proud of you, and I know that everyone that follows Jiu-Jitsu and follows MMA, we're excited to see what's next for you. And I have no questions that you're gonna do great things. Not just in the MMA. I hope you go in and out, because I don't want, like your mom, I don't want you fighting for too long. Honestly, personally, I saw that you had a little bit of blood in your last fight. I was like, okay, now he knows the feeling of really being an MMA fighter. And if he continues after this, it's over. He's going to do it. And then I'm like, yeah, he's talking about the next fight. I'm like, oh God, he's going to do it. Yeah. So, because some people freak out with the blood, and you were just totally chill about it. And I just want to thank you for coming. It was really cool to have you. And we're excited, we'll keep an eye on you. And I'm so proud of you. Huge fan of yours. Very proud of you, what you've accomplished, and
thank you.
Beautiful.
Appreciate it.
That's awesome. It was awesome. Look,
Thanks.
let's try to get together again before your next fight. As soon as everything is scheduled, I'll reach out a few weeks before.
Great.
We'll do maybe a breakdown of your opponent or something like that. We'll figure something fun. But
Cool.
you will be awesome. Thank you very. I want to send a special thanks to One Championship for hooking us up
And allowing us to use the video.
the footage too. It was awesome. Garry, my brother, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.